Okay, upload done. Upload is finished. One of the downsides to doing daily content is, am I good? Am I okay? Yes. Yes, I'm good. One of the downsides of doing daily content is that you lose track of everything. Like, look at this mess. Look at it. What is all this? It's just crap. But this is my workstation, and a lot of people have asked, like, where do I edit? This is where I edit. Like, where I do these is where I edit. This is my lounge / kitchen. This is the aftermath of yesterday's thumbnail. Look at this. This is the aftermath of the thumbnail. I had the camera just there, light, and then there was another light here which has died. I'm in the process of cleaning that up. I've also had a lot of deliveries, so I've got to take all that down because this is like an endless. I don't even know what all of that is. It's just from stuff. Got to clean up dinner. This was dinner, and the cat broke the lights on the Christmas tree. So I need to sort everything and sort my life. And look at this. Look, this is just a 7200 without a cap on. What is going on, Sam? Sort it out. I'm going to sort it out in a minute, but I want to talk about something that you guys have all asked me about quite a lot in DMs and comments across different videos, and that's about basic camera settings, and we'll talk a bit about it in a minute. Now, one of the most that doesn't go on there. One of the most important things, hang on, the light is terrible. One of the most important things is to understand how the shutter works, and essentially the shutter speed is the thing that captures the image. So basically the shutter is the thing that captures the light and allows light into the sensor in the camera body. When people talk about the aperture is from the lens itself, this thing here. But the best thing to remember when you're talking about shutter, or if you're going to be doing photography, is the lower the number, so you have 1 over a number. So you'd have, say, 1/3 of a second, or you'd have 0.5 of a second, or you'd have 1/1000th of a second. The good thing to remember with that is that the higher the number, the quicker that shutter is going to go. I think it's better just to show you. This is my old Sony a7 III. Let's put that into 24mm so you can see what we're talking about. And we're going to turn this on, and we are going to press the shutter. So you can see the shutter going, this thing going up and down. High plus, right? That's 1/8000th of a second. Let's change that down to, let's say, 30 or 20. This is 25th of a second. And then let's go to the middle range to about 500. So you see the difference, right? So the shutter is how fast this closes. So if we go to 1/8000th of a second, obviously it closes very quickly, opens and shuts. Let's get that light in there so you can see it. Ready? So super quick. And then if you've got it all the way down to, say, I don't know, 1/8 of a second, then you can see that it's a lot slower. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. So a good example of that is if you're doing like sports photography, or if you're doing, I don't know, racing photography, automotive, like, you know, fast things that are moving fast. You want a higher shutter speed to be able to capture that motion quickly, but you have to remember that there needs to be enough light. Now, the way that you do that is judging the situation. So, for example, if you've got, say, a lot of light because it's the middle of the day, the sun's out, then you should be fine. You know, there shouldn't be any need. You probably have it like, I don't know, 1/1000th of a second at like f/4.5, so you have more. We'll talk about aperture in a minute. Now, while talking about that, I actually, thinking about it, it sounds very complicated. How can I do this easy? Now, I think the best way to do this to explain it so you guys understand. I mean, most of you, I think, have got a good basic knowledge of shutter speed and understanding of how it works. But basically, you want these three things to marry up: shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. So, firstly, the shutter speed, as we've already established, is how quickly the shutter goes up and down to allow light into the sensor. Now, the second one in there is aperture. Aperture is zoom you in, is this here. Can you see, like, right now, the aperture is all the way open. If I close the aperture, if I can change that. If I change the aperture, that is now that's f16, as you can see, so really small. It's like a tiny pinprick, so it's only allowing a little bit of light in. If we change that all the way to, this one goes to 0.95, it widens it all the way. Look at my, oh my god, look at my face. Hi. You can see that it opens it all the way, which is quite interesting. So what we can learn from that is, if we're out at night time because it's dark and we need that natural light coming from here, we want to allow as much light through the lens as possible. So we're going to have it at a focal point aperture that is low. So 0.95, 1.4, 2.8, f4, and then we're going to have to change the other settings to be able to make it correctly exposed. Now, there are rules in which that you should apply to your There are rules that you should probably apply to photography, but photography for me is mostly about going out and shooting and just trying to understand the environments you're in. And the only way that you're ever going to learn that is just by doing it. So for me, mostly during the daytime, if I'm shooting at f1.4, which is my Samyang, my 85mm Samyang, I tend to have a shutter speed of around 400, 500, and ISO about 100, 120 as a base point for you guys to go in. And that's on like an overcast day. Now, so there are things that you can do. There are things that you can do to kind of like, to better understand and to help you realize what you're supposed to be doing when you're shooting. Now, when I first started, I used aperture priority or shutter priority. Now, aperture priority and shutter priority are two different things that allow you to kind of understand what the camera thinks the settings should be. So if you put your camera in aperture priority, that means it's going to prioritize the aperture that you set. So if you set it at f2.8, then it's going to prioritize everything else to keep that at f2.8. So it will adjust the shutter speed to keep it at that. The same goes for shutter priority. If you set it to shutter priority and you put it at 800th of a second, then it's going to change the aperture instead of the shutter. Now, you can do this and put it into auto ISO as well, depending on your camera. But what I would personally suggest doing is learning how to use manual efficiently and quickly. Now, I am well aware that using shutter priority and aperture priority and learning manual and all of this is very daunting, especially when you first started, because I started once and I was like, what the fuck is all this stuff? And I thought I knew better, and I used to be like, yeah, this is how you do it. No, it's not. So basically, you just need to go out and shoot and find what works best for you. And I fully accept that that's a very privileged thing to say coming from me, but that's why when I do go out and I shoot POVs, I try to tell you the settings that I'm using, so maybe you can go and recreate that. A lot of people ask me to put my settings, but it's a creative process. Sometimes I like doing it, sometimes I don't. Now, what I want to say is there is no right or wrong way of doing it. There are rules, and people say when you go to photography school that you should always do it this way, you should shoot at this shutter speed when you're shooting at this aperture. It doesn't matter. It's about being a creative, and it's about going out and taking the photo by any means possible. Now, content is completely subjective. It is up to the creative or whoever it is creating the content. It's up to them how the finished outcome looks, and it's not up to us to decide. Now, when you are starting out, you want to be the best. You know, it doesn't matter what you're doing, photography, videography, playing an instrument. As soon as you start, you feel that resentment. You want to be the best as soon as you start, and that's normal. That's fine. Don't feel bad for feeling like that, because it's normal. But what you have to do is understand that there's a process that needs to be had. Getting a car wash.
Hi.
What was the last thing that I said? What was the last? This one's just not working anymore.
Probably not.
What was the last thing that I said? What was the last thing that I said? What did I say? Oh yeah, there's a process. And sometimes that process can be a little bit tedious, and it can make you feel a little bit shit sometimes. But you have to keep going. You have to push through it and learn, as we all did. You have to learn by trial and error, and you will get a lot of trial and error. And sometimes you'll just be like, because that's why you've clicked on this video. You've clicked on this video because you want to learn the basics of photography. And the basics of photography is first learning that it's an entire process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I'm not going to tell you, go and do this with your shutter speed and do this with your aperture and change the ISO like that, because that's not going to give you a one click and you're going to be fine. Now, you have to make sure that you marry up aperture, shutter speed, and ISO to create this harmonious thing that creates an image. And what we want to do essentially is have no noise. Depending if you're going, you might want that as a creative thing. But what you want is, in my opinion, is you don't want to have like a noisy photo. So the way to do that is making sure that your ISO is low and the shutter speed is according to what you're trying to shoot. So like I said earlier, if you're trying to shoot something fast-paced, you need a faster shutter. If you want some light trails, you need a longer shutter. So your shutter needs to be open for a longer period of time. So like 0.5 to 30 seconds, depending on what you're shooting. For like bus trails, car trails, you're looking at anything between 0.5 seconds and 10 seconds, depending on what you want on your creative style. But you will understand that after you go out and you shoot. Now, I do understand why you guys ask for me to put my settings in photos and POVs and stuff, so I will make a conscious effort to try when I get time to put them in there. If it jeopardizes the process for me, then I won't do it, because for me, I would rather just create something and not stress about it. I feel like a lot of content these days is all about being a perfectionist, is all about being the most perfect type of creative, when that's not true. A lot of creativity has a lot of imperfections, and I've found myself even with the POVs trying to perfect them some days, and I'm just like, nah, it doesn't matter. Like, fuck it, just be yourself. I think the takeaway from this video is, if you're a new creative or you're going to start doing photo or video, is there's a process to everything. And shutter speed, aperture, and ISO are going to be your friends, but I would start out in auto, see how the camera interprets the scene that you're in, and then work from there. Maybe try aperture priority, maybe try shutter priority, maybe use auto ISO. I'm using auto ISO right now for this scene, so it lights me correctly. I've got it at f2.8 and 50th of a second. I'll talk a bit about video settings in the future, but we're going to have a look at the hashtag. I use a hashtag over on Instagram where you guys can show me the stuff that you do create. So if you are a new creative and you want to get featured on this channel, at the end of every single video, I look at that hashtag. So someone actually said the other day that they didn't know how to actually use the hashtag on Instagram. So in the caption, where you post your photo, you can just put hashtag Opticalwander, and then I'll be able to see it and put it in this video. Cat's enjoying the tree still. Okay, screen record is on. Gonna go to recent and do a little bit of a refresh. Make sure that's on there, so I don't get steered while I'm going through it. Cat is loving this tree, honestly. What is that? That's in New York. Oh, do you know what? I'd love to go to New York. Hopefully sooner rather than later. New York is massively on my list. Do you want to go to New York?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. We are going to be going away soon, both myself and Roxanne, but I'll tell you that in a later video. We'll go with this one. I love the silhouette of that. That's really sick. That's in Frankfurt in Germany. That's a really cool drifting shot from JV Media. Talking a long exposure, this one here, as you can see, because we were obviously talking about shutter speed all day, you can see some of them, because of the speed of the car, some of them have got a longer trail than other ones. So these ones up here in the top left have got less of a trail because they're coming onto the motorway, meaning that they're not going as fast as the ones on the right hand side, which are already on the motorway. But that's a little example. Let's go with, that's a really cool car. Wow, that's insane. I actually saw this car once. I was with Tom. I don't know where I saw it. Can't remember where I saw it. But I have seen that car before. That's a really cool shot as well. Nice simple street shot. That's cool. I like that. When I see that where people like stack the 3 photos like this one, I do really like that. And also the color grade is really sick. Let's do 3 more. That's really cool. Oh, God, I'd love to go and like get some like I can't fly an FPV drone, but I'd love to get some like FPV footage of a surfer at some point. Maybe I'll learn FPV. I don't know. Cat, don't chew that. He's chewing the tree now as well. Alright, let's do 2 more. That's a cool street shot. I do really like that. I hope the geezer's alright. The guy that's kind of like slumped over. I think he is, otherwise they would have said that. I think he was just a bit tired after his Christmas shopping, I do believe. And then we'll do 1 more. Let's go a little scroll and we'll choose. That's really cool. I love that. That caught my eye straight away. Love the shadow. Right up my street. Really love street photography. Street pun. Bit too far. Probably. Right. If you want to get featured, use the hashtag Opticalwander here. I'm going to go and stop my cat from choking himself on baubles. Cat. Hello. Stop. Stop. Don't. I love you very dearly. Please don't kill yourself by choking on a bauble. All that being said, create more, stress less, and I'll see you tomorrow, I guess. Because daily... Yes, you like this. Don't look at him. We bought Omi this recently, and he does really like it. Like that? Do you like it? Do you like it? No. Maybe not.